but we need to show up when things are going well. When someone shows up and said, I did really great at this today, we need to know how to actually genuinely support what goes right.
Studio 5 parenting contributor Heather Johnson recently said that it's a parent's responsibility to not only show up when things go wrong, but also when things go right. That comment sparked today's topic, how to sit in and savor our kids' successes. Heather joins me to tell us how and why it's important that we do. Watch your words, because we want to learn more. Always, always, always. And that comment, I should give context. It was a small part of a larger discussion on building resiliency in families. And you made the point that the bonding and the connection comes more strongly when we do show up during the good moments, as opposed to when we show up when things aren't going so wrong. Why is that?
Absolutely. It shows up and it makes a greater impact when we show up and are sitting there with our kids in the successes. We don't have any trouble pointing out where they're falling short. They don't have any trouble seeing it. They recognize those things. But when we sit in their successes, it shows them that we want to get to know them. We come to learn their personalities. It's where we get to show them love. It's where we genuinely get to sit and say, because you're excited, guess what? I love you, and so I'm gonna be excited too. That moves mountains. Now, we also think of this as really important for parents, and it is, but this is something we wanna consider whether we're a spouse, we wanna sit in successes with our spouse, with a neighbor, with a friend, with anyone we work with. And this is really great too when it comes to being a grandma. Our grandkids go to their grandma so that they'll sit in the successes with them.
That's so true.
It is just where we go, right? I mean, I still remember that all the way up until I lost my grandmother's, even in college. I want to drive to my grandma's house and I want to sit there at her counter and I want to tell her all the things that are going right.
Yes.
She doesn't need to reprimand. She's not there to tell me how I need to do better. She just wants to hear the successes. So be sure if you're a grandma that you become really, really good at this, really good at this.
I love that challenge on the table for both nanas and also from the motherhood lens. And when I put on that hat as mom and I consider the idea of sitting with our children in their successes, in the happy moments, that sounds really fun. I also worry that you don't want to overinflate. There's a balance, right? Or like overdo it or I don't know. It feels like there's a tricky balance there.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we get worried that if we're too excited or go too far in with something, that they'll forget that they need to do better. Right? That all of a sudden we're like, oh, I'm just over the top with all the things you're doing well. Oh, but wait, don't forget, there's also like a spelling test on Friday. And I don't love what you're doing to get into college and that wreck with the car.
Yeah, or I don't want ego to inflate either.
We
right?
get worried, right?
Yeah.
And so when there is a success though and they're coming to us with it, we want to make sure that we get excited just like they're excited.
Okay.
If they come to us with excitement, mirror that excitement and give it right back to them. If they come at you with a 10, come back at them with a 10, right?
Okay.
Now think of situations like this. This is your 7-year-old running into the kitchen after school and they're jumping up and down. Take the challenge, jump up and down with them for a second. Can you imagine what they would do if all of a sudden you jumped up and down too? Or if your daughter comes in and she's a senior and she says, so-and-so asked me out for Friday, and you know she's had a crush on him and she can't sit still while she's sitting at the counter, sit still or don't sit still with her, meaning sit next to her and be equally excited. So we want to get excited with them. We also want to be a mirror, and we want to mirror their emotions and their excitement, but knowing what to say to them is really important. And so when they come to us and they say, guess what, so-and-so asked me out on Friday, we want to mirror that right back to them. Okay, wait, you're telling me that the boy you had a crush on asked you to go out on Friday night? Give it right back to them. The coolest thing about this is it builds understanding, and when someone feels understood, they feel connected. Sitting in our kids' success with them is a connection space. And so when we mirror what they're saying, it will build that connection for them. If we can go a step further and tell them how the information might make them feel when we're mirroring it, to look back and say, they asked you out on Friday, I bet you are so excited.
Oh, Heather, this is so good.
Now all of a sudden, we've really said to them, guess what? I'm present and I care. And you know how you know I care? Because I'm actually considering how you might be feeling right now.
That's gold.
Now we're sitting in successes with them.
I love that you just gave us words and a pattern, a formula actually.
Absolutely.
For those moments. And they could be big, they could be small. I also love that you illustrated and illuminated some smaller in-between successes, not just the big scored the winning goal.
No, it's not. It's all the things going on. Now, once we're mirroring those things, then we want to become really good at gathering data. We don't tend to do this with our kids, especially in successes. It goes like this. They come into the room, they say, guess what? I got an A on my spelling test. And we go, that's so great. Have you finished your other homework today?
We move on.
And they're like, oh, okay, well, never. And we've felt this. We have all been in a situation with an adult where we have come in excited and they have dismissed it. We don't want to dismiss it, we want to gather data. So what this sounds like is recognizing the emotion. You seem so excited. Tell me more. You did great on your spelling test today, and we want to gather all the information we possibly can. Again, gathering information says to our kids, I care. And so I'm going to sit here and I'm going to gather more and more and more information until you're done telling me about it.
So it's the detail combing and like taking their cues, because I can see teenagers getting maybe overwhelmed with questions as I try to, elicit and bring forward more detail.
Right.
But you're saying, again, mirror them, take their cue. When they're done talking, you're done asking.
Right, and when we see their emotion, that will open them up to want to give us more information, especially teenagers. If you say to one of your kids, wait, you did great on your French presentation? Tell me more about that. They'll come to you because you saw them. You're so excited about class, let's hear it and sit there and be present.
You say we want to let it be enough.
Let it be enough. Now, when our kids come to us with successes, let's go to something like a math test with an 85.
Okay.
And they come rushing in to say, guess what, I got an 85 today. That 85 has to be enough. It cannot be, well, wait, you couldn't have gotten 100? Or what happened to the other, 15? Well, what happened? It has to be enough. If they are willing to come to us with a success, we have to see that success from their perspective as enough. There's a reason they're telling us. They're excited about that. So we've got to take what they give us, and it has to be enough for us.
I am lapping this up. What do you mean when you say don't make it what it isn't?
So we tend to take it from, this is a chance for them to see our excitement in the things they love or they're growing in or they've been involved in. And we turn it into, let me give you advice. Let me tell you how you could do it different. And even we turn it into, let me point out how I'm great, and we make it about us, right? So again, an 85 on a math test, and we give advice. Hey, you know what, next time, if you started studying a little earlier, I bet you could get that 100.
Isn't it funny? Someone immediately comes to mind from my childhood that fit that role you just described.
We've heard it, and we heard it then, and I bet you could find someone now.
I can think of
that you could find someone now that if you went to them with something, they would dismiss it or offer advice or tell you how you could do it differently.
It feels like that one up.
That one up, right? There's the space too, where as parents we go the other way, where it's, hey, an 85, that's great, except I told you, if you would have studied last week, you probably, and we go both directions with it. And so we want to make sure this isn't about advice. This isn't about how you could do it different. This isn't about us. They came to us because they're excited somewhere. Let's just simply be excited with them. Besides that, it is way more fun. If we will let go of turning it into something it isn't, we'll have a lot more fun with them.
Yeah,
it's a lot more fun.
It's fun to be a cheerleader.
It is. The last thing too we want to make sure that we're doing is if you want to show your kids that you're sitting in successes with them, share their success where they can hear you. So for example, your spouse comes home and it's looking at your spouse and saying, hey, have you talked to her yet about what happened in math today? Or has she told you what went down in French? Or hey, have you talked to her about Friday night yet? While she's sitting there, your child is sitting there hearing you bring up the fact that you listened, you understood, and you cared. And now with their ears open, you are sharing that information.
Why are we both teary
with other
right now?
people? Because
That's
it's the
tender.
coolest thing ever.
That is a really cool thing to think about. I mean, you're esteeming this little person that is trying so hard to please and to excel and to succeed. Why do you always make me cry?
And now you're sharing it with other people who can revel in it, right? Put them in that position. Make sure they hear you. Make sure they hear you say, hey, tell your dad what happened today.
Yeah.
As their siblings come in, hey, what about this? And even better, have you called your grandma and grandpa yet to tell them how math went today? Now all of a sudden they are enough and you do understand and you do care. We've got to sit in the success. It will move mountains. It connects us in ways nothing else does.
I've learned these tears mean truth.
Truth.
So thank you for
truth.
bringing the truth. And the script you gave us today was just invaluable. Heather, thank you so much. Heather has a private coaching practice and counseling practice. You can find her contact information on our website. That was so good.